welcome back to the show. This evening we have a returning guest who was on about 9 months ago, and when he was on, comics were dying. Apparently, they got better. So, but Lewis Southard is back with us because he has a new project on Zoop. So let's bring him in, find out what he's been up to, and find out about the new project.
Hello, Chad. Thank you so
Hey.
much for having me back. And yeah, no, funny. I wrote a book all about how comics are dying, or at least the history of comics. And then now we find ourselves in probably one of the greatest crises of the modern era in terms of comic
Mm-hmm.
books. But luckily, I'm here to prove that we're still trucking along. We're still trying to make some good stuff, and that's with this beautiful new or second year really partnership with Zoop. So I'm very thankful that they didn't throw me out the door the first time, and I get to hopefully make a new book.
Good. Well, for people who maybe missed our chat before, tell us a little bit about yourself and your history as a creator and a reader.
Oh man, okay. I'll start with reader. I got into comics when I was, let's say, 13. I read the Superior Spider-Man arc. That's the one that got me into comics by Dan Slott. And after that, I was hooked for life. I got into comics when I would like the industry proper when I was 19, and I've been immersed in it ever since. I've sold my soul to the devil that is the comics industry, and I can't leave even if I wanted to. But since then, I've made Villain Seeking Hero, which was originally at Action Lab Entertainment, Blackout Bombshell with Sumerian/Massive Publishing. Most recently, Comics Are Dying, the comic with over 100 creators telling the history of comics. That was our last campaign with Zoop. And then Flash Gordon Quarterly, I was one of the writers of that from Mad Cave Studios. And now, the return of the comic that broke me into the industry is Midnight Western Theater. Never collected before. 10-issue run going between 2021 to 2023 over at Scout Comics. Now, I have the publishing rights, so I'm back with full force. Have all my beautiful... I have my toy box again. I have my Weird West toy box, and we're back at Zoop to hopefully make a beautiful 240-page epic tome that I wish to talk with you about.
So let's dive right into it then. Tell us a little bit about the book. But give us like a large overview of the book.
Well, you like goth cowboys? Because that's the log line right there. And I'll tell you the origin story. This was a good one. When I was working on Villain Seeking Hero for Action Lab, it was a very continuity-driven book. Like every detail kind of mattered, and I was enjoying it, but at the same time, I wished I was doing something a bit looser. So I came up with a back burner project where I reached out to an artist that I work with on a one-shot, David Hahn. And I knew he loved drawing goth people. So I was like, hey, goth cowboys, is that something you'd be interested in? And he's like, I've already said yes before you sent the email, basically. So we got to work on that. And like I said, this is the back burner project. This is just something happening in the background. What I didn't know is that Action Lab Entertainment would collapse literally the month the book was supposed to come out for Villain Seeking Hero. So that ruined my comics career when it didn't even get to start. So then I was like, okay, I'm out of the job. What do? I need a new job. So I checked through my emails, and it turns out Scout had sent me an approved submission form, and that was for the little backburner project, and that's Midnight Western Theater. So it was 2 volumes. Volume 1 is an anthology Weird West tale. It is all about the undead adventurer Ortensia Thomas and her sidekick, the Alexander Wortham, the reluctant vampire, as they confront evils, whether they be supernatural or all too human, in a Wild West in the middle of the 1860s. So basically, you just have these 2 let's call them supernatural problem solvers, and they deal with outlaws, they deal with cults, they deal with werewolves. We even do a riff on the Incredible Hulk, and there's one issue where they fight each other. Dun dun dun. But that's a little drama for you. Meanwhile, the second volume, that one tells the origin story of our main character, the woman in black, Ortensia Thomas. So we get to see her as a teenager. We get to see a whole new cast of lovable and huggable characters, only for us to wonder, why are some in the first book and why are some not in the first book? Where are they? What happened to them? So any good hallmark of a prequel, that's in there. And that one deals more with witchcraft and demons, as well as good old fashioned cowboy rootin' tootin' shootin'. So I think that's that's a good overview of it. What else do you need? We got vampires, we got hot goth cowgirls, we got skeleton horses, got monsters. Jeez, it's too much just for one book.
Yeah, there's a lot to dig in there. Kind of inspirations, or what made you interested in those types of characters?
Well, you're gonna hate me for this. I'm gonna tell you my deepest, darkest secret. Prepare yourself. Are you prepared? You're buckled in? I am not a Western fan. I am not at all really into cowboys, which is ironic because I have been labeled by some editors as the cowboy guy just because I wrote this. Like when here's a fun tangent. When I did Flash Gordon Quarterly, I was tasked with creating basically like the first ever Earth 2 for Flash Gordon, and they're like, okay, send us some pictures, send us some ideas of like an alternate universe. And I was like, funny animal universe, or like, let's just go full on retro with it because this is like a modern reboot. Like, why, this, that, and the other thing. And they're like, no, none of these are really hidden. And then I was like, what about a cowboy universe? And they were like, that's it. You love writing cowboys. You can do that one. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. And I was very happy with that. But anyway, back to the main topic. Like, I am now the cowboy guy because of that, and I don't like Westerns. Literally, the only Western things I've ever seen, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Westworld. But even that's not really a Western type thing. If I'm being truthful, it was really dumb. I got the idea because I was listening. I was bored. I was staring at a blank page. I was listening to The Cure, and I had just seen an episode of Westworld at the time. And I was like, goth cowboys, haven't seen that before. And then I was like, that's the quickest way to get rich. That's going to make me a billionaire overnight. So I went to go do, and clearly, can you not see my white walls, which signify splendor and affluence? But like it. That's how that started. But in terms of the characters, Ortensia Thomas, the woman in black, and her sidekick, Alexander Wortham, the reluctant vampire. I like the idea of a human and a super powered character working together, but in their day-to-day interactions, you would be more afraid of the human, just because of like their skill sets and personalities. I like playing with that a lot. It's because a bunch of the themes of Midnight Western Theater is dealing with otherness, being an outsider, as well as dealing with like gender and like race, given that it's a different historical time period. So get to play with a lot of emotional theming, and historical storytelling with it. So it really got to open a lot of doors in terms of that. But you wouldn't think that right away, because it is just like, hey, let's go shoot that. Am I allowed to swear? Or is this okay? Cool. It's like, let's go shoot that fucking monster. And then it's like, oh, here's a little like deeper meaning. But luckily, it's not like I'm gonna beat you over the head with it. It's more like, oh, I'm a vampire. I feel different. And then, it's metaphorical. So I think you'll have a lot of fun with that. And then the sequel, like, it really, like, it fluctuates the dynamic completely, because while the first one, Ortensia, is this competent badass with this incompetent vampire working for her, the sequel is like her as a teenager. So she doesn't know everything. And she's more petulant, more grouchy, and more impulsive, which leads to her being a bit more sloppy in this dangerous environment that she's not fully grown accustomed to yet, because she's trying to figure out who she is. Meanwhile, she's with her surrogate mother, like her adopted mom, and they don't exactly get along, but they need each other in order to survive in this situation. So it's that kind of love-hate relationship you see with some parents and some kids, where it's like they can like go into a shouting match and then laugh just because they both said a stupid insult, and then be like, well, why do we do this? We're so silly. And then stuff like that. I was actually quite surprised with the sequel, because that's like an entirely different dynamic. I wanted to do, when Scout gave me the chance to make a sequel, I wanted to do something completely different than the first one, like even structurally, storytelling, characters. And so like Volume 1's an anthology, Volume 2's a linear tale. Volume 1 is basically like a romantic duo, Volume 2 is a mother-daughter duo, just really, trying to flip the script almost completely to get myself interested, get other people interested. But the sequel, I didn't expect this at all. But I went to a retailer summit at New York Comic Con, and I got to sit down and speak with some of the people that carried my books. And they told me that Volume 2 of the series, they noticed an uptick of women and queer people who never even came to the comic book store, coming to buy the book. And I was like, that's really cool to hear. Because like in the comic book industry, we're always looking for the mythical new reader. And the fact that like, oh, cool, I made something that managed to attract an entirely new audience, an audience I didn't even really expect. That was just really cool to hear.
I don't know if it's just because it's currently what I'm listening to, but I got some. Are you familiar with Stephen King's The Dark Tower series?
Yes.
I got, and I'm working on Wolves of the Colin, so it's like a Western, but there's vampires. So I got a little bit of, that feeling from reading what I've read of the book.
I think everyone loves a good bit of genre mixing, obviously, because it's just like, yeah, that's just, at the end of the day, I when making comics, I'm working with an artist on a new book right now, and I've adopted this thing of like on top of the scripts, always putting like follow the rule of cool, where it's just like if I put something in the script, but you have a better idea to make it like a pretty badass visual, go do it. Like we'll fix it in post, as they say. So it's like with this kind of thing, I did really want to like. It's got. I got to mention the creative team. Like it's got fantastic art by David Hahn. He did Batman 66. He did. I think it's. I forget. He did this like amazing vampire book. So like no wonder he was ready to jump back on this. But then Volume 2, we have Butch Mappa, who's worked for Archie, he's worked for DC. He came in and helped fulfill that, and like the two styles really mesh very well. The colorists, we had Ryan Cody and Sean Peacock, and then a letterer, my ever faithful and ever suffering letterer, Buddy Baudouin. He lettered both, and then covers, we had Kalman Andrzejowski on Volume 1 and Julianne Griep on Volume 2. And Julianne Griep is, I think, I'm going to shout her out, one of the best illustrators working right now. I try to work with her whenever I can. So much so that she has drawn the cover for the collected edition on Zoop right now. So like that is a brand new cover that we made specifically for this volume that we really hope to fund, that needs your support today.
So let's talk about the campaign itself. What are you offering for people to, back the book?
Oh, that excellent! I gotta wait. Let me think. I don't know. I didn't realize I actually had to make it. No, I'm kidding. So like we are for this, the book itself is going to be roughly 240 pages. So it's going to include all 10 issues of the original run from Scout. And then we are going to just fill it up with all the extra supplementary material, a lot of stuff that's never been seen because it went unused for one reason or another over at its former publisher. So we have variant covers, we have concept art, we even have like a promotional cosplay photo shoot that we did with an old friend of mine. So like you'll get to see what Ortensia looks like in person. And then we will probably include like some other details like about some of the history and behind the scenes of the book. At one point, it was being adapted for television, if you could imagine that. So it would probably be fun to add like the weird stuff that was going on there for that absurd period of time. So that's going to be the main chunk of it. But the rewards that we're offering is going to be a PDF of the book. Then there's the standard version with Julianne's fantastic new cover. Then we are doing two variants, one by the original series artist, which is the original series homage, featuring Ortensia and Alexander, done by Kalman Andrzejowski. Then another variant by a fantastic Philadelphia artist, Heather Vaughn, who I know is very much celebrating the Super Bowl victory right now. And then if you missed out on Comics Are Dying, we're doing a Zoop bundle as well, where you will get both the new campaign and the last campaign. So you'll get both a copy of Midnight Western Theater and Comics Are Dying, the comic. This is probably the last chance you'll ever get it, unless we get like, a direct market edition. And that's never an impossibility. And then after that, we have like a whole bundle where you can get everything. Then we have a variant bundle. And then there's a tip jar and a lovely little postcard. So if you just don't want to spend any big bucks, you could at least buy the postcard, or at least give us a nice little $1 donation. So we will ride off into the night, at least $1 richer.
So, working with Zoop again, are there any things that, I know they do a lot of the, back behind the scenes stuff for creators, but is there anything that you learned, yourself, from the last campaign that you're, kind of applying for this one?
I think this campaign is definitely more of an underdog story. I won't lie. That last year's campaign, it is fairly easy to promote it if you have 100 people who worked on it, because then you have 100 people shouting it out. But this one is, it's a small team. It's just me and the original people who made the book. So this is really for fans and for new readers. This is the opportunity to get it in a fine printed edition that's never been offered before. It's never been collected before. So this is the shot. But we're really having to hustle and grind in order to promote the campaign, shout it out, and do that. So this time around, it's really focusing on that. But I'm ever proud and reassured that we'll do it. I have high hopes. But I would say, if funded, one thing I was very pleased about last campaign was Zoop's print quality. So when we got our Comics Are Dying copies, they were fantastic, like quality books. And I'm not just saying that because, I work with them. Like these were really fine print editions, and I'm very excited to have that again. So I know that any, any backer, they will not be disappointed with the quality of the book itself. So yeah, other than that, it's pretty much same old. It's just another year, another job for little old Lou. But Zoop is a fantastic collaborative partner. Jordan Plosky and Eric Moss, they've always been very supportive of me and all the projects I've been wanting to do with them. They give me a fair amount of freedom in order to promote the book. And they also, as well as printing and distributing, they help behind the scenes a great deal too. So I'm very thankful for both of them. everything they do for me and a hell of a lot of other creators now. It seems like that platform is really booming, and a lot of different, like from larger publishers to indie creators. It's really cool to see that the platform is starting to really flourish and diversify.
So, uh, going back to you and your process, as a creator, who do you consider to be your influences? Like for your writing or style or.
I would say no one's ever asked me that question on a comics podcast. That's a very good question. In terms of my writing, I I really I really enjoyed the writings of Hunter S. Thompson. I enjoyed the writings of F. Scott Fitzgerald, and in terms of story in the world of comics, Jonathan Hickman was always a big influence. Older books, probably oddly enough, what's his name? He did a lot of Legion of Superheroes. Paul Levitz. Paul Levitz. I loved his Justice Society run, which introduced like the All Star Squad or something like that, where it was Star Spangled Kid and Power Girl and Huntress. Like those were some of the first like comics that really got me. Other than that, I really love detail oriented storytelling that it is chock full of lore and continuity, but it's not central to the point. Like I very much believe in the every comic is someone's first comic type deal, and you should be able to jump into it and enjoy that single issue as well as when it's part of a whole. And I think like I like Kirkman a lot, like in terms of his writing style, because it is just like doing a lot of mental math. You wouldn't I like prose writing, you don't really do a lot of like I'm going to take an account for the page flip unless you're doing something really nutso. But in comics, like you have to like you're thinking in terms of visuals. So it's like, yeah, you probably will have the most maximum impact if like your splash page kill is when you flip the page and it's on the left hand side, as opposed to like, oh, I can see it out of the corner of my eye on the right hand page, stuff like that. Yeah, but I can't say that you can look at any of my works and be like, oh, this is the same guy, because it's all very different. Like obviously I have my quirks, but I can't say none of my projects have been very what's the word, like they don't really complement each other, I think, which is good for me as a creator. But I think like if you were a reader and you're like, oh man, I need my Fix a Lewis today, I'm gonna switch over from this book to another book, and it's like, no, that's gonna be an entirely different tale for you. So yeah, I don't know. I am my greatest influence. That's the answer to the question. I inspired myself in a dream.
All right. So two-part question coming up, and the first part is, what's the best piece of advice as got as a writer, and do you remember who from?
You know what? Here's a fun one. I don't think I've told this story. When I was maybe 12 or 13, my parents managed to save enough to get me to go to like a Stan Lee meet and greet at a local convention, and and they were like, you go and you introduce, and I'm like a kid basically, but they're like, you go and you tell them that you like stories and maybe he'll give you a job. And I was like, and me being me, I was like, that's a great idea, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. So I went, and I had a little resume. I swear to God, I had a little, and like I had my pitch. I couldn't tell you in a billion years what the pitch was, but anyway, so I'm sat in like this little crowd, and everyone's asking these questions, about like, what did you and Jack Kirby think when you made Black Bolt or something, just that. And then me, I finally mustered up the courage to raise my little hand. And I asked him, what advice would you give to someone who wants to be a comic book writer? And then he just like shambles up to me and he puts his hand on my shoulder. And then he goes, I have no idea what you just said. And then I am like freaking out as a little kid because Stan Lee is just grabbing me by the shoulder. And then my brain kind of freezes. And I just say the word advice. And then he's like, advice. And then like one of the adults in the crowd was like, he wants to know if you have any advice for anyone who wants to be a writer. And he's like, advice to be a writer. And then he gets back to his little position. And then the only advice he said was, if you want to be a writer, you just have to make sure you're a damn good one. And I don't know what that advice means, but I have exactly, or what he meant by it exactly, other than like, obviously there's the surface value of like, oh, you just be like me and I'm the best. But I've taken it to the heart of just like, yeah, just I've given it meaning of just like, just try your best, just put yourself out there, you be the person, as opposed to letting somebody else beat you to the punch, find every opportunity and just be the best version of yourself in order to, hopefully advance in your career and hopefully advance the careers of the people you work with. So I think that'll be my Hallmark movie interpretation of what that meant. In reality, he was probably just giving himself a pat on the back. But that's a fun way of looking at it.
So what's the best advice that you would give your younger self if you go back and talk to your younger self? What do you know now? Besides, don't work with Action Lab.
I would give my younger self a laundry list of people and places not to go work at. But I would I have like spoken to, which is odd, but like I'm like a college dropout, yet I have spoken at universities teaching like comics classes. Like, hey kids, stay in school if you want to make comics. But like, but anyway, like I people laugh at this, but I find this to be the most real, true, and simple piece of advice I could give anyone, which is just send an email. And that is applicable to anything. Because like I have worked with some incredible artists that like, some people who with prolific careers that only work with me just because I was like, hey, would you like to do this project? And then they're like, yeah, sure, why not? And then it's like, oh, cool. I didn't expect it to be that difficult. Like, so to the point where like I've been at conventions. Allison Sampson, who's like a big artist right now. I remember when I first met her, she was like, oh, I'm surprised you didn't ask me to be part of your Comics Are Dying project. You invited 100 people and you didn't invite me. And I was like, I didn't think you said you'd say yes because you're you and I'm me. Mm-hmm. But even at times I doubt myself. But for the most part, like whether it's an editor, someone you want to collaborate with, some place where you want to ask for advice, like you got to shoot your shot and you always have to be professional, but I find that a lot of people put in their head, like with me, with what happened with Allison, like, you're not going to be like, oh, don't put in your head, like, this person would never work with me, or I would never get that job, or that. No, anyone can get the job. Anyone can do it. And you could work with anyone. You can't work with everybody, but you could work with a good chunk of people, but they're never going to know unless you reach out and ask. So I found that to be, like, that's the best piece of advice I could ever give to anyone who really is trying to break into comics or get into comics. Like, it's simple. It sounds dumb, but it's very real, and it takes a lot more courage than you'd probably think.
there's someone who's had issues with publishers. um,
Who, me?
yeah, I mean, it's like you seek them out.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I just
But
have a type.
what do you, especially with what's happening with Diamond? What is your take on the future of the industry?
Ooh, you've opened a can of worms there. We're talking. I'm going to speak. I am not the most famous man in comics. My mother would say otherwise, but I know the truth. Uh, but I would say that I am like a nice mid tier, lower mid tier creator, and I've only like what it's only 6 years ago really I broke in, and the industry from then to where it is now is completely different. I am so upset for any creator of any age, it doesn't matter, trying to break in right now. Even before what's happened with Diamond has happened, because there is no real place to submit to anymore to try to get your project off the ground. A lot of the larger publishers are a bit performative with their submission portals. I can't say that like a lot of them really go anywhere, especially now we're looking at, I've spoken to some editors and publishers. We're looking at this we're looking at this transition into legacy titles or legacy IP, familiar brands. We're looking into uh, names that have been around and are proven to create you're going to get a good book at the end of the day, right? Or they have a fan base that will come out and support the book. A company's got to do what a company's got to do. But in terms of creators trying to break in, creators trying to build a career, it is very, very difficult right now. And you would say, oh, well, there's plenty of independent publishers. Well, right now, I maybe not, given what's happening with Diamond. I think a lot of places are going to disappear. And we are going to see a significant shift away from the direct market. I think if it really gets that bad, I have been sort of saying like it is pretty bad. It is pretty bad what's going on right now, and I think in a weird way, and it ties back into our main topic, we are entering a new Wild West period, which is both exhilarating and terrifying for people, because I think we're leveling the playing field to a certain extent. I think for everyone, even the bigger publishers, we're all going to be fighting for spaces on crowdfunding. I think Kickstarter, Zoop, and all the others, that is where people are really going to start flocking to. And I would really encourage anyone trying to break into comics, take it from, like we joked around, take it from somebody who worked with a lower tier publisher that turned out to be predatory or a toxic working environment or didn't have the stable structure to support itself, nor you as a worker of said company. That's not worth it. It's not worth it at all. And it can create years-long struggles, years-long problems, some of which could end up becoming legal problems. So I don't think you need to do that. And now with crowdfunding, you especially don't need to do it. If you have a creative vision, if you have the capability and the opportunity to make a book, you can do it. And you can do it for yourself and the people who make it with you, depending if you have a team. And you can, if it's for one person or 10 or 100 or 1,000, you can build that audience for you and yourself, and you can be that proven commodity to yourself. You don't need to prove it to anyone else, really. And at the end of the day, no one will rip you off. No one will jerk you around. You will have made the thing you wanted to make. And like clearly other publishers, we've seen with like Skybound, we've seen with Dynamite, like they're going there too because they know that's an audience. There's an audience there. And I think we're looking at, people would say like that's bad because then it's like overcrowding. I would say that creates more people on the platform to go out and check it out. So I think with that, like high tide raises all ships, and that's like genuine. That's not even me like blowing smoke. So I think if you're going to shoot your shot, do it that way, and then you will have all the benefits. But it will be a lot of work. It will be a lot of work. So if you're doing a Kickstarter, you got to be professional. You have to maintain it, and you have to actually go out and do it and make it. Otherwise, you can end up in a lot of trouble. If you are lucky enough, not lucky, if you work with Zoop, luckily they do a lot of back end stuff, so they can help you out with that. But they are more selective than Kickstarter, obviously, because Zoop has somewhat of an editorial oversight team. So you will be reporting to them. And obviously there are other ones, but the only other one I can think of is only good if you're like an insane person. So I wouldn't recommend that one. So that's my long-winded answer. Go crowdfunding. That's the TLDR of that. What's your take on it? Let me ask you that, because it is a scary and rough time right now.
Yeah, I just saw something that Ablaze had to let 2 editors go because of the distribution.
Yeah. My buddy, or I don't know if I could call him a friend yet. We're coworkers. Kev Kettner was one of the people who lost their job. Currently, we're seeing lots of downsizing and lots of layoffs because obviously there's not enough capital to go around with these publishers, and lots of good people with well-respected years of work. Even look recently at Dark Horse, they fired Connor Knudsen, who is a very well-respected editor with tons of credits, and then I think all of Valiant has had to undergo a restructuring to the point where they fired their editor-in-chief. And now they're going to be restructuring that too. So yeah, all these companies, not all, at the end of the day, Marvel, DC, they're not going anywhere. Image is going to be fine. But a lot of these more loosey-goosey ones that were reliant on a structure that has been around for the better part of 40 years, that has existed without any real innovation in the past 40 years. We are seeing the after effects of that. Obviously we got a taste of it during COVID when Diamond shut down. And now we are in this world where I don't want to be this guy, but I would think the direct market in the long run has hurt more people in terms than we have actually gained as an industry. It's caused the industry to shrink, and it's caused people to suffer even more so. If there was, people are losing their jobs, companies are going under complete fluctuations. Comic shops are always, always in a feast or famine mentality. So, like I said, it's a wild west. And it's frightening and it's exhilarating at the same time, because hopefully we can find some better ideas and some newer takes on how we can keep making comics in the future. Because obviously what's happened, or what has happened in the past, it's not going to keep persisting in the future.
And I know that another one of the companies that kind of does the crowdfunding thing is AWA, and Axel, yeah, I asked him
Alonzo,
at New York. Yeah, I asked him at New York Comic Con, if that was kind of what they were doing going forward. He said, yeah, because it allows us to kind of get different, people, into our projects. So I think it's good.
No, I agree. I think with crowdfunding, I think with the direct market and publishers, we're often reliant on the title itself. While I think with Kickstarter, unless you're a big name, Kickstarter, you have to put yourself out there. And some people, they don't really like it, or you have to put the idea face front. Advertising is a big thing. Well, here's something. Most comic book publishers require you to do your own PR. You have to do that they don't pay you overtime for that. They encourage you to go out onto as many podcasts or as many, or do as many things as possible in order to get your book out there. And that's not like this, where this is my personal creation, and therefore I have to go out and do it, because if I don't do it, no one else is going to do it. It's like, oh, we just made this comic for I don't know what's an obscure thing. Man from Uncle. We just got the license for Man from Uncle. Now go out and promote it for us. And it's like, okay, well, you clearly had enough money to buy the license, but now I'm left to my own devices in order to promote this book. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're already going to be spending all that time unpaid, wouldn't you rather be doing that for the things that you made yourself? Because then you would be getting the full profits for that. That is your own thing. That is your own brand. And if you're going to be putting in the effort, it might as well just be for you. So yeah, I'd rather just promote my own projects, and because then there is also that sense of genuineness. I don't have to be I've been a lifelong fan of Man from Uncle since I was a little kid, and I'm so thrilled to be doing this project. So yeah, I guess you have to let the mask drop off a bit, and you get to actually be yourself. So what I'm trying to say is, with Kickstarter or with crowdfunding and Zoop, you are part of it, and if you can integrate yourself to some degree, maybe you're not the most extroverted person, but at least if you could put a face to the name and a name to the project, then you are already doing yourself a great service with your career and your future. So, because then there's more positive association, and once again, it's all centered around you and your team's vision. So then you all get to be part of it. I think any successful collaboration, you always have to make sure everyone is mentioned, everyone is on board, everyone gets their time in the spotlight, regardless if they did it for a job or if they're full force like we are into it. You have to, everyone should be included, not just the spearheader.
So as we wrap up here, I'll let you give one last pitch for your own project.
Oh man. Okay. Goth cowboys. They shoot people. They go on adventures. They bicker with each other. It's got an undead cowgirl. It's got a whiny vampire man. It's got cool witches. It's got evil demons. It's got all sorts of monsters. This is a years-long project and dream. I always wanted this to be collected in a book. It never has been, and I was always told it'd be basically impossible for them to ever print it as a trade, whether it be one volume or two. So if you are at all interested, I would very much appreciate any and all support, and I really hope that this can just be made. I've been wanting it to be made for years now, and if it can, that would be fantastic. I hope to get extra copies so I can sell them at shows, and hopefully I don't have to go on eBay or comic shops in order to get my floppies of the full set to sell people. I can just hand them one book and say, here you go. And that would be really special.
And do you have any shows planned for the year?
I have a few. Next week, or no, this week, sorry. I will be at KatsuCon over in near Washington, D.C. But other than that, where I'm doing a lot of shows in New Jersey, so Garden State Comic Fest, the Super Jersey Convention, doing Hershey Comic Con, maybe London and MCM, I'm not sure yet, maybe San Diego, and then Baltimore Comic Con, I'm certainly going to be there, and then maybe New York and maybe Thought Bubble. I have a lot of unheard from emails. But am I allowed to tease my next project after this one before we sign off?
Certainly,
I
certainly,
am.
and then when it's ready, you'll have to come back on and we'll have to talk about it. Of
No,
course.
I will want to talk about it because this is one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to do. I am working. Speaking of crowdfunding, the idea is we're going to do a Kickstarter for an 80-page giant. I'm working with this artist who I work with on Comics Are Dying, named Tyler Linaz. He's a fantastic artist. I'm so grateful to be working with him, and we're making like we're calling it like a modern Silver Age book, and I can't spoil too much, but it is one of the most exciting books I've ever made, other than Midnight Western Theater, the complete collection, of course. But at the same time, in this new book, I am shocked that we have been allowed to play with some characters from over the course of, let's say, the past 40 years, some of which being like characters where no one else has ever written them except now I'm going to be guy number 2. Like, so like we are so amazed by some of the amazing creators or generous creators who are letting us play with some of their characters. And I can't say who, I can't say how, what, when, where, why. I'll just say if that has piqued your curiosity whatsoever, just give me a follow online at Lewis Southard or at Lewis J Southard, wherever I may be.
Well, you know how to get a hold of me whenever you can talk about it. So
I will show you the book. I will show you I will give you a PDF of that book, and then when you get to what I am alluding to, then we will come over here and we will have a party. So that'll be the plan.
well, I hope if you make it to New York this year and I make it, that's say hi to Kevin.
Hello, Kevin.
But hopefully, I'll get to meet you in person if you make it to New York. So
I should hopefully be, but it is very expensive. So
yes, well,
and with the way the economy is going, I might have to skip New York completely just so I can get like a can of soup at, at Walmart.
True. Very true. But again, thank you for taking the time to chat. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, and hope best of luck as the campaign continues, and we'll continue to follow it over on Comic Watch and help you get the word out.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciated it.
All right, have a great evening.
You too.